Hello, world. I'm losing my shit a little bit. My name is Manny, and I'm interviewing someone. Woo! For a change of pace. Just kidding. I'm so excited because I get to interview my friend Catherine Bracy about how tech is getting involved and is being affected by COVID-19, and also how tech is standing up and helping out. So before we do that, I just want to, for those of you who haven't been on these before, I want to let you know that you are now tuned into Manny's Super Civic Cyber Conversations. Manny's is a physical space. This is not Manny's, this is my kitchen. And well, the space is closed. And so we are now bringing our programming online because just because the space is closed does not mean that the work is over. So we're continuing to provide civic programming to you through the internet and mostly Zoom. And today we are lucky to have Catherine Bracy, who is the president, executive director, I don't know, what do you call yourself? CEO?
CEO, executive director, founder.
Founder, owner, queen bee of Tech Equity, which is an amazing organization. I'm going to let you explain a little bit about it. And I'd like to also welcome your dog, who is near you, I think.
Yeah, Gordon, come here. Say hi. Come on. Here he is. He's got his little toy. Apologies in advance when he inevitably interrupts the interview.
No, I love it. It's good. It adds a nice little levity to all this. Okay, so Tech Equity, what do you do? What is Tech Equity?
So in a nutshell, we are mobilizing tech workers in California around issues that we think will make it so that as the tech economy grows, more people benefit from that growth, and that the tech boom is actually creating a rising tide that lifts all boats and not driving inequality and displacement. So, you know, there are many reasons why the tech boom, especially in the Bay Area, has really driven an affordability crisis that have nothing to do with tech, but also tech, you know, and people who work in tech especially have an opportunity, a responsibility to play a role in helping to solve those problems. So the issues we focus on are housing and workforce and labor. And obviously those are issues that are very critical at this moment. So we've been thinking a lot about how we mobilize the tech community in the Bay Area and beyond to be, you know, positive contributors and really civically engaged in helping their neighbors during this crisis.
And how has this crisis affected the tech community in the Bay? Like, some people are saying, you know, it's gonna mean that a lot of tech companies are gonna move out of the Bay because teleworking is now a thing. And what are you hearing about in the tech community about how all this is affecting that industry specifically?
I mean, honestly, anyone who's making those kinds of predictions right now is guessing, and I would hope that people have learned their lesson about making predictions in this moment in time. Like, we just don't know what's going to happen. And I think how we're seeing in the very short term tech respond is, you know, on a few different levels. In many ways, we're the least affected, at least people who are in the Bay Area. We already had some level of financial cushion. It's easy for people who work in tech to transition to working remotely. And, you know, by and large, I mean, I think that it kind of depends on the company you work for, but your job security isn't necessarily at scale across the industry, not in immediate danger. And so what we have found is that there are a lot of people who work in tech who really want to be good neighbors, you know, the people who have been in our community for the last 3 years, who now maybe have some more time on their hands. They're sitting at you know, whatever time they were using to commute they have back, and they're in front of their computer and want to know how they can give back. And so they're really thinking through what role they can play in sort of, you know, helping their neighbors make it through this crisis.
And are you seeing that people want to give back in a way that is skills-based or financial or time-based? Like, where are you seeing the tech community say they want to be helpful?
I mean, I think it's a little bit, it's all three, you know, depending on what they have. You know, obviously money is always going to be helpful, but there's just a never-ending need. There is, people who work in tech have a unique skill set. So for example, we've been partnering with an organization called Tech Exchange, which for the last couple of decades has been providing hardware and broadband access to homes in the East Bay, that low-income households in the East Bay that don't have access to the internet. And now that schools are out for the rest of the year, that means that in Oakland, at least, about a third of Oakland USD school children don't have access to a computer or the internet at home. And, I don't know if you've ever helped a family member set up a Wi-Fi router or a new computer remotely. Like, that's something that people in the tech community are disproportionately able to help out with. So we're trying to match people with those skills.
Oh my God, I remember when we had Windows 95 and I had my IBM in my apartment, and there were like 17 feet of cord, and there were like 18 different plugs. Do you remember that with the desktop when it was like this big?
Oh yeah, I remember having, listen, this is how old I am. I remember having to unplug my phone
Me
from
too.
a phone jack to plug in my computer so I could get on AOL.
100%. Someone's on the phone, you scream, "Get on the phone! I'm trying to get on the internet!"
Yeah.
And their call for you. Or sometimes my sisters and I would try to get on the internet so we can hear what our parents were saying on the phone, because temporarily you
Mine was always, well, the phone's busy when someone calls you, if you're using the internet. So my excuse for why none of the boys ever called me in high school is because I was always on the internet, and the calls weren't coming through.
I love it.
Yeah.
Though they could have been chatting you on AIM. They really wanted to reach.
Yeah, I don't think those were boys my age, to be honest with you.
Sorry, sidebar. Did you get a haircut? Because I saw some.
No, this is the grow out situation that's happening here.
Because I saw some pictures of you with a much more shaggy mane, and I'm wondering if you just put product in or if you've been like secretly.
Yeah, this is like product, trying to look somewhat presentable for the.
It's great.
Are you recording this? Is this going to be for posterity? Oh, great.
Okay. I was going to say it's very George Harrison. I kind of liked it.
Yeah, it's a little Bieber, it's a little Beatles, it's a little. I had it where I wanted it before, and then you. Okay.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm glad that was all recorded. So some people are saying that the tech community leadership and companies are not stepping up financially the way they should. And I'll just couch this in saying, I kind of hear it because, for the Bay specifically, because you were hearing before this, like, Google's putting $1 billion in Bay Area housing, right? Mark Zuckerberg's putting $100 million in Bay Area schools. And I'm like, well, where's the like $10 billion Salesforce, Facebook, Google grant that's going to go to like close the budget gap in the city? Like, what are you?
That's called taxes. So my answer to that is yes, philanthropy. And, people need to understand what they're saying when they say tech should be giving more. What they're saying is we should offload responsibility from the public system to private oligarchs. And yeah, I mean, I'm always for more philanthropy, but I don't think that's the be all end all solution that we should be driving for. What I would like to see is that these companies are, not just tech companies, but all companies are paying their fair share of taxes. And, if they were, some of the structural problems that we're seeing amplified right now and thrown really into stark relief wouldn't be as bad as they would otherwise. So, I just don't like the idea of putting all of the onus for solving public problems on the shoulders of Mark Benioff and Mark Zuckerberg. Nobody elected them to anything. Right. And it really is our responsibility in a democracy to demand that our elected leaders enact policies that create the structures where they're paying their fair share.
Well, and I mean, to be fair, that's what Prop C was about a little bit, and it passed, and now the money is just sitting in limbo, which is
which is actually one of the things we're working on right now. So there are two companies, Postmates and Salesforce, that have given the city permission to spend that money rather than wait for the law. So for people who don't know, the lawsuit, there's because of a Prop 13, which is the worst bill ever in California history, made it so that local governments need to get a 2/3 majority if they try to pass a new tax. And so the Prop C was a new tax. It got like 65% of the vote. It needed like 67 to get to this 2/3 majority. There was a court case that tried to get the money. One judge said, yes, you can spend this money, and it was appealed. So now it's sitting in this appeals court, and it might take 7 years to get worked out. Meanwhile, that's money that can't be spent on solving the homelessness crisis in San Francisco. So some companies have given the city permission to spend that money, regardless of the outcome of the court case. And we are trying to get other companies in San Francisco to also give the city that permission, which isn't, I mean, they're already paying the tax. It's just going to sit in a black hole. Like, why not give the city the permission to spend that money right now when we really need it?
There is the hope for those companies that are not signing on that the money will be returned to them if the lawsuit is won by the people who don't.
I don't think so. I don't think it's about, I mean, they're going to have to pay the tax. It could take years. And I don't think that there's a lot of companies who are sort of against the tax in principle. I think it's just more that they don't know it's an option.
Yeah.
And so that's, the kind of work that we do is to help the tech industry understand what these really high value opportunities are to address structural challenges in the Bay.
So if you had a magic wand, organizer, you are a community builder. And so let's just take what you already do and just like put it on steroids. And you were able to mobilize the entire tech community in the Bay Area to all work together on one aspect of relief and recovery. What would you coalesce the community around to support us right now?
I mean, I don't think it's one thing, because this is such a colossal problem, right? And, for the next whatever, there's going to be the public health crisis where there are ways that the tech community can play a role. There's the economic crisis. I mean, obviously from tech equity's perspective, we want people to be engaged in, the issues that are really going to exacerbate the inequality crisis. But, if that's not what you're called to and you'd rather focus on the public health stuff, there's opportunities for you to get involved in that as well. I think the really key point, though, is that, and we see this time and again in moments of crisis or, kind of a civic awakening where tech just wants to run 150 miles an hour at solutions, and they don't spend the time to really build the relationships with the communities that are most affected by the problems. They are not listening as much as they should be. And so I think whatever it is you are called to do, it's how you approach that work that really matters. Following the lead of experts and following the lead of communities who are most affected, and figuring out how you can plug in the way that they really need you to plug in, and not just deciding, best how things should happen and that you're gonna, do it your way. It's hard. I mean, it's hard in a time when you're like really called and passionate about something, and when things are so urgent and the need is so urgent to like do that kind of work, but it is really critical.
I mean, it is just stark, the contrast between, because like, we both know people who make a lot of money in tech. We know people who are really struggling, right? And it is crazy that in being in an industry can kind of be a golden ticket right now, right? It's like, not for everyone. Not everyone in tech, has a lot of savings and is going to be able to weather this storm super well. But I know for my friends that work at some of these big tech companies, they're certainly not stressing out the way my hourly wage workers are, who haven't got each check and are literally like, what the fuck am I going to do? So, and they're neighbors, right? They're in the same city. And so it really does, I hope that the result of this is not an exacerbating of existing tensions between tech community and those who don't work in tech.
Yeah. I mean, what I think we're unfortunately going to see is an exacerbation of the of inequality, because as you said, like people who already have privilege are going to be more insulated from the fallout. But to your point, there is an opportunity for us to bridge some of the other divides. And that really, I mean, I think, you know, from our perspective at Tech Equity, we're not even really doing anything different. We're focused on the same set of issues we were focused on 2 months ago. Um, but there's just more urgency in them. And so if people can, you know, understand that this approach of like being in coalition and working in partnership, and that tech can bring something to the table that really helps people, and does it in a way that's really collaborative, then no pun intended, then we do have an opportunity to really build goodwill that we didn't necessarily have a couple months ago.
So I was gonna ask this question, but Suki, you beat me to the punch, and you wrote it better, Suki. So I'm gonna I'm gonna ask your question, Suki. Maybe you'll get to this. We're getting to it now, thank you. But beyond considering tech workers as potential cash donors, how can we activate them to develop new privacy-safe tools to help us manage COVID-19 related problems, e.g., unemployment claim, SBA loan processing capacity, neighborhood nutrition needs and food distribution, community education needs? Teaching them equitable practices along the way is a super bonus. Totally with this question. Sidebar on it, I was listening to Governor Cuomo in his press conference today talk about how EDD in New York just like cannot handle the capacity. And I was just wondering, like, I wonder if there's tech solutions to some of this. So yeah, to Suki's question.
Yeah, I mean, the answer is if you want to help solve that problem, it's like you're now devoting your career to it. And if you don't know Code for America yet, you definitely should know Code for America, but it was where I worked before I started Tech Equity. We need people who work in tech or who have technical skills to really be engaged in the problems of how technology can deliver services. My brother lost his job in New Orleans and has been trying to access unemployment in Louisiana for the last few weeks, and it's been extremely traumatic for our family. And that's not something you can just swoop in and fix or do on a volunteer basis from San Francisco. I mean, these are things that like you really need to devote energy to in a real way. So I guess the answer to the question is, I seriously consider making a career change. There's lots of things you can do in the public interest tech sector right now that would be really helpful. And this isn't going to be a crisis of a couple of weeks or a couple of months. Like this is going to be, hopefully, if we can see a silver lining from this, or one of the silver linings, it is that people in tech are woken up to some of the issues that they could you know engage on, in the same way that the Trump election woke up a lot of tech people to their need to be engaged in politics. Similarly, I hope this is an opportunity for them to wake up to inequality crisis as well.
This is also possibly not the last international collective crisis of our lifetimes. And so if we are learning things right now, obviously, about capacity for handling massive unemployment claims, technology and helping deal with a mass influx of applications, for instance, we should implement those tools, that learning now, so that if this happens again in the future, I hope it doesn't, we're more prepared.
That's right.
I guess my last question is just looking into the future, Catherine, and you know we've talked a little bit of doom and gloom here, but tell me what you think is possible as an opportunity for bringing the community of people that work in tech in the Bay Area closer to the people that don't as a result of this crisis. How can we use this as a bonding mechanism?
Yeah, I mean, it's become a little bit of a cliche at this point, which is probably a good thing, but I think there's a lot of people waking up to the idea that we're not going back to normal, and that this can be an opportunity for us to really fundamentally change systems that were broken before. And I think that we also, I mean, when it comes to Tech Equity's work, ironically, you know, our challenge 2-3 months ago was really getting, being able to build those interpersonal connections between people who work in tech and the people who are experiencing the challenges of the affordability crisis the most. Now, despite the fact that we're stuck in our homes, a whole new range of opportunities for us to connect tech workers to, grassroots organizers who now are digital organizers and don't know how to use a computer, or school children in Oakland who need to set up the Wi-Fi router. I mean, those things are, that interpersonal connection, neighbor to neighbor connection, is really critical in solving all of the big challenges that we face. And so I'm really hopeful that, this is creating an opportunity for us to build those relationships and to just understand how interconnected we all are.
I hope so. I hope that is what happens. And I think, and I'm going to be right with you in that and helping do what I can to make it happen. If folks have questions for Catherine, you can type them in now. Now is the time for question asking. And if we don't have questions, I think we can actually just end this early if you want.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, go fight.
How's your salmon?
It looks pretty good. I've been making some version of roasted fish and vegetables like 2 times a day for the last month, so I'm getting pretty tired of it. I've decided, I think I can say this, I've decided I'm not going to eat meat anymore, just fish. So I've been eating a lot of fish, and I'm getting really tired of it. I'm getting tired of a lot of things, I know, but it's hard. I want to not be. It is a privilege to have a home to be in and to be able to afford all this stuff. So I'm trying to like get perspective in all this, but I'm getting tired of my apartment.
Well, I have a recommendation for a vegetarian food blog. It's called Cookie and Kate. They have really good. I'm not a vegetarian, but I make a lot of their stuff a lot. So if you're getting sick of fish, it's called Cookie and Kate.
Cooking Kate.
Cookie, like I have Cookie Monster, and Kate, K-A-T.
Kate, cute. I'll look it up. Jenna asks how important is retraining workers with digital skills to help as more jobs become automated?
That is a really good question. I mean, there's been this sort of movement of like everybody needs to learn how to code if you want to be like a viable in the workforce of the 21st century,
right.
Which has always been something that we've kind of pushed back against because, everybody is not, if we're pinning all our hopes on everybody becoming a developer, then our economy is screwed. But there's so many other jobs that are going to require just some basic digital skills that people don't have. Right. So we do think that's an important investment that we need to make, particularly as we're probably going to see, to your point, a big shift in the economy over the next few years. We're actually working on a project called System Reset, which is sort of a working group of tech companies and organizations like the Last Mile to build digital skills for formerly incarcerated people. So people who are coming out of prison and really are behind the 8 ball and when it comes to, the latest and greatest in tech. So we're going to need to see more of those kinds of initiatives, especially when you think about the fact that so many people don't have, 25% of 20 to 25% of Bay Area residents don't have internet at home. Internet.
Wait, 20 to 25% of the Bay Area do not have the internet at home.
Internet or an internet connected device at home or high speed internet. So, I mean, it really tells you, especially at a moment now when like you need the internet to, apply for unemployment or do all those kinds of things. And libraries are closed and all of that. I mean, it really is a critical need at this time.
Hey, Catherine Bracy, thank you for all the work that you're doing with Tech Equity. I have just posted for those who are here the Tech Equity Collaborative membership link. Please become a member. It's $10 a month. It's super easy, right?
Yep.
It's super easy to do Tech Equity and proud of it. You can also go to the link above my head, joinit.org/o/Manny's to become a member of Manny's, a sponsor. We do need your support as well. It's going to be a long road to recovery for us, and we're relying on a community of sponsors to support us and get us through. You can also click on the link in the chat box. It's joinit.org/o/Manny's, and you can tag us at Welcome to Manny's. Thank you to my team over here, Sam, Ram, and Jupiter. I'm looking forward to getting into this salmon. Thank you, Catherine, for being in the fight and for working so hard and for everything that you do.
Yeah, thank you. Godspeed.
See you later. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.